October 12th, 1944. The woods east of Aachen, Germany. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber pressed his binoculars against his eyes, scanning the distant tree line 3 kilometers away where American forces had established their artillery positions. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from the realization of what he was witnessing. In his leather notebook, stained with mud and rain, he scratched words that captured the essence of German artillery despair. They can reach us, but we cannot reach them. We are blind men fighting an enemy who sees everything and strikes from beyond our grasp. Weber commanded the 2nd Battery of Artillery Regiment 46, equipped with the 15 cm Schwer Feldhaubitze 18, Germany's standard heavy field howitzer. For 3 days, his battery had attempted to silence American guns that were systematically destroying German positions throughout the Aachen sector. Every ranging shot his battery fired drew immediate, devastating counter-battery fire from American artillery. Yet when Weber's observers tried to locate the American guns for retaliation, they found nothing within German artillery range. The American batteries were firing from positions so distant that German guns could not respond. It was not warfare, it was execution from beyond the horizon. The weapon tormenting Weber and thousands of German artillery officers across the Western Front was the M1 155mm gun, universally known as the Long Tom. This single artillery piece would redefine the mathematics of battlefield geometry, creating a killing zone that German forces could not escape and could not counter. What Weber and his fellow officers were experiencing was not tactical defeat, but the complete obsolescence of German artillery doctrine, rendered meaningless by a weapon that could strike from distances previously thought impossible for mobile field artillery. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The story of the Long Tom began not on European battlefields, but in the corridors of American ordnance planning during the late 1930s. Army planners studying the Spanish Civil War and early European campaigns of World War II identified a critical gap in American artillery capabilities. The standard American corps-level artillery, the 155mm howitzer, could reach approximately 14,000 yards. Intelligence reports indicated that modern German heavy artillery could engage targets at similar ranges. American forces needed a weapon that could outrange any enemy artillery, providing counter-battery superiority and long-range fire support beyond the reach of hostile guns. The specifications demanded by the Army seemed almost contradictory. A mobile field piece capable of firing a 95-pound projectile to ranges exceeding 23,000 yards, accuracy sufficient to engage point targets at maximum range, transportability by standard military vehicles without requiring specialized railway equipment, reliability under continuous operations in all weather conditions, and crew safety during sustained fire missions. The Watertown Arsenal in Massachusetts accepted the challenge. Their design team, led by Colonel Lewis Harris, understood that achieving unprecedented range required rethinking every aspect of artillery design. The solution emerged through meticulous engineering. The gun barrel measured 23 feet, providing the length necessary for complete powder combustion and maximum projectile velocity. The barrel was constructed using an autofrettage process, pre-stressing the steel through controlled internal pressure that increased strength and allowed higher chamber pressures. The recoil system incorporated a sophisticated hydropneumatic mechanism that absorbed the massive forces generated during firing, protecting the carriage and allowing the gun to return to battery position automatically. The carriage itself represented innovative engineering, split-trail design providing stability during firing, while the entire assembly could be transported in 2 loads, the tube on one trailer, the carriage on another. The first pilot model completed testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland in March 1941. The test results exceeded expectations. Maximum range with standard high-explosive shells reached 25,000 yards, nearly 15 miles. With supercharged propellant, range extended to 25,400 yards. Accuracy at maximum range placed 50% of rounds within 100 yards of the target, acceptable precision for counter-battery fire. The Army immediately ordered full production. By Pearl Harbor in December 1941, 25 long-tom guns had been produced. Production accelerated through 1942 and 1943 as American industry mobilized. Watertown Arsenal, Baldwin Locomotive, Works, and several smaller contractors eventually produced 955 M1 155mm guns between 1941 and 1945. Each gun cost $48,000, roughly twice the cost of a 105mm howitzer, but delivering capabilities that justified the expense. The specifications of the completed weapon revealed its revolutionary nature. The gun tube alone weighed 16,600 pounds and required a specialized six-wheeled transport wagon. In firing position, the complete system weighed 30,300 pounds. The split-trail carriage could traverse 30 degrees, sufficient for engaging targets across a broad front without repositioning the entire weapon. Elevation ranged from -2 degrees to 63 degrees, allowing both direct fire and high-angle bombardment. Rate of fire in sustained operations averaged 40 rounds per hour, though experienced crews could achieve 60 rounds per hour for brief periods. The crew consisted of 14 men, each with specialized duties essential to the weapon's operation. The ammunition developed for the Long Tom matched the gun's capabilities. The standard high-explosive shell designated M107 contained 14.6 pounds of TNT. The shell's aerodynamic design incorporated a streamlined nose that reduced air resistance, maximizing range. The fuse could be set for impact detonation, delayed action for penetrating fortifications, or time detonation for air bursts. The most significant ammunition development came with the hypervelocity armor-piercing round designated M112, though primarily designed for anti-tank use. This round achieved muzzle velocities of 3,000 feet per second, providing flat trajectory and exceptional accuracy at extended ranges. German artillery officers, who would later face the Long Tom, had been trained in artillery traditions dating to the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 71. Prussian artillery doctrine emphasized mass fire from carefully positioned batteries, deliberate fire missions planned at division or corps level, counter-battery operations based on sound ranging and flash spotting, and limited mobility, with positions held for extended periods. This doctrine had proven effective against French, British, and Russian artillery in World War I and remained largely unchanged through the 1930s. German field artillery reflected this doctrine. The standard divisional artillery piece, the 10.5 cm Leichter Feldhaubitze 18, fired a 32-pound shell to maximum range of 12,300 yards. The corps-level heavy artillery, the 15 cm Schwer Feldhaubitze 18 that Hauptmann Weber commanded, fired a 96-pound shell to maximum range of 14,600 yards. The longest-ranged mobile German field piece, the 15 cm Kanone 18, achieved 27,000 yards but weighed 12,400 pounds in firing position, requiring extensive time to emplace and displace. The mathematics of range created fundamental tactical advantages. An American Long Tom battery positioned at maximum German artillery range could deliver accurate fire on German positions while remaining immune to German counter-battery fire. German artillery had two choices: advance into Long Tom range to engage American batteries, exposing themselves to devastating American counter-battery fire, or remain out of Long Tom range, conceding the battlefield to American forces. Neither option provided any possibility of victory. The first significant combat employment of Long Tom guns occurred during the North African Campaign in 1943. The 7th Field Artillery Battalion, equipped with 12 M1 155mm guns, arrived in Tunisia in February 1943. The mountainous terrain around Kasserine Pass seemed poorly suited for such large weapons, but American artillery officers quickly recognized the Long Tom's unique capabilities. German artillery, primarily 15 cm Feldhaubitze 18 howitzers, dominated the valleys from positions in the hills. American counter-battery fire from shorter-range weapons proved ineffective. The German guns were positioned on reverse slopes, protected from direct observation and beyond the range of American 105 mm and 155 mm howitzers. Major Harold Stevens, commanding Battery A of the 7th Field Artillery, identified the solution. His long-tom battery could reach German positions from 20,000 yards, well beyond German artillery range. On February 28, 1943, Stevens positioned his 4 guns in a wadi, a dry riverbed, 15 miles behind the front lines. Forward observers with the 1st Armoured Division radioed coordinates of German artillery positions. The long-tom battery opened fire at 1300 hours. The effect on German forces was immediate and profound. Oberstleutnant Hans Dietrich, commanding German Artillery Regiment 33, recorded in his unit war diary discovered after the war, "Enemy artillery of unknown type engaged our positions from extreme range. Our sound-ranging equipment calculated firing positions beyond 20 kilometers. This exceeds the range of any mobile field artillery known to us. We attempted counter-battery fire but could not reach the enemy guns. Our batteries suffered steady attrition throughout the afternoon, losing 3 guns destroyed and 7 damaged. We were forced to displace under fire, an extremely difficult evolution that cost additional casualties." The pattern established at Kasserine repeated across every battlefield where long-tom guns appeared. German artillery, constrained by shorter range, could not effectively respond. The psychological impact compounded the physical destruction. German artillery crews understood that their technical expertise and tactical skill meant nothing when the enemy could strike from beyond their weapons' reach. The Allied invasion of Sicily in July 1943 brought long-tom guns to sustained combat operations. The 36th Field Artillery Battalion supporting 7th Army deployed its 12 guns during the drive toward Palermo. German forces defending Sicily employed extensive artillery, including captured Soviet guns and Italian pieces, but none could match the long-tom's range. American artillery officers developed systematic counter-battery techniques that would become standard doctrine. Forward observers, equipped with SCR 610 FM radios, spotted German gun flashes during fire missions. The observers radioed coordinates to fire direction centers, where trained personnel computed firing solutions using graphical firing tables and meteorological data. Long-tom batteries received fire missions within 3 to 5 minutes of initial observation. German batteries, having just fired their missions, had not yet displaced when American shells arrived. First Lieutenant Robert Harrison, forward observer attached to the 3rd Infantry Division, kept detailed notes on long-tom effectiveness. Between July 15th and August 1st, 1943, his observation post identified 37 German artillery positions. Long-tom batteries engaged all 37. Post-battle inspection by American intelligence officers confirmed 29 positions completely destroyed, 6 damaged and abandoned, and 2 that had displaced before American fire arrived. This 84% destruction rate far exceeded the effectiveness of conventional counter-battery fire. The Italian campaign of 1943 to 1945 provided ideal terrain for demonstrating long-tom capabilities. The mountainous peninsula created battlefield geometry favoring long-range artillery. German forces held high ground, using elevation for observation and fields of fire. American forces attacked from the lowlands, often unable to the lowlands, reach German positions with direct fire weapons. The long-tom bridged this gap, reaching German strong points that no other American weapon could engage. The Gustav Line, Germany's primary defensive position south of Rome, incorporated elaborate artillery positions. German guns sighted on reverse slopes behind Monte Cassino could bombard American positions in the Rapido Valley while remaining immune to American counter-battery fire from conventional artillery. The 17th Field Artillery Battalion brought 8 long-tom guns to the Cassino sector in January 1944. Their mission was simple but vital: suppress German artillery to allow American infantry to assault the German defensive positions. Captain William Morrison commanded Battery B, 17th Field Artillery. His after-action report provides detailed analysis of long-term employment at Cassino. German artillery positions were located on reverse slopes of Monte Cassino at ranges of 18,000 to 22,000 yards from our firing positions. Conventional corps artillery could not reach these positions. Our long-term battery could engage them comfortably within maximum range. Between January 20th and February 10th, we fired 1,300 rounds in counter-battery missions. German artillery fire decreased significantly after our first week of operations. Prisoner interrogations revealed that German batteries had been forced to displace repeatedly, reducing their effectiveness. Several batteries abandoned their positions entirely after suffering casualties from our fire. The breakthrough at Cassino in May 1944 vindicated American faith in long-range artillery. During Operation Diadem, 12 long-tom batteries supported the Fifth Army offensive. Their primary mission was counter-battery fire, silencing German guns that had dominated the battlefield for months. The results proved decisive. German 10th Army artillery, which had averaged 500 rounds per day throughout the winter, fired less than 150 rounds per day during the first 3 days of the offensive. American infantry advanced under artillery support that German guns could not suppress. General Lieutenant Fridolin von Senger und Etterlin, commanding the German 14th Panzer Corps at Cassino, wrote in his post-war memoir, "American long-range artillery dominated the battlefield completely. Our own artillery, though skillfully handled, could not respond effectively. The Americans could engage our positions from distances our guns could not match. We suffered steady attrition of artillery pieces and crews without being able to retaliate. This material superiority, more than tactical brilliance, forced our withdrawal from the Gustav Line." The Normandy invasion of June 1944 brought long-tom guns to the decisive campaign of the Western European War. 12 field artillery battalions, equipped with long-tom guns, landed in France during June and July, providing long-range fire support for the breakout from the beachhead. The hedgerow country of Normandy created unique challenges. German forces used the dense terrain for concealment, positioning artillery in woods and orchards where aerial observation could not detect them. American infantry advancing through the hedgerows suffered from German artillery fire that conventional American counter-battery fire could not suppress. The solution involved integrating long-tom batteries with advanced observation techniques. The Grasshopper forward observation aircraft, tiny Piper Cub liaison planes, flew over German positions identifying artillery locations by muzzle flashes and then radioing coordinates to fire direction centers. Long-tom batteries could engage these targets from positions 15 to 20 miles behind the front lines, well beyond German artillery range. The system proved devastatingly effective. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, the artillery officer whose diary opens this account, experienced this system firsthand during the Normandy campaign. His battery, part of Artillery Regiment 46 supporting the German 7th Army, attempted to provide fire support for German forces defending St. Lo. In his diary entry for July 18, 1944, Weber recorded his frustration. "We fired a mission at 0700 hours, engaging American infantry positions reported by our forward observers. Within 4 minutes, American counter-battery fire began landing on our position. We had excellent camouflage and had maintained strict radio silence, yet somehow the Americans located us instantly. We lost 2 guns destroyed and 5 men killed before we could begin displacing. This is the 5th time in 2 weeks we have been forced to displace under fire. Our effectiveness is collapsing." What Weber did not know was that an American L-4 Grasshopper had observed his battery's muzzle flashes and immediately radioed coordinates to the 92nd Field Artillery Battalion, equipped with long-tom guns positioned 18,000 yards away. The Fire Direction Center computed a firing solution in 90 seconds. 4 long-tom guns fired for effect, placing 16 rounds on Weber's position before his battery could limber their guns for displacement. The mathematics of counter-battery warfare favored American artillery overwhelmingly. German guns firing missions exposed themselves to observation for 30 to 40 seconds. American observers needed only 10 seconds to identify the position and radio coordinates. Fire direction centers required 60 to 90 seconds to compute solutions and transmit firing data. Long tom batteries needed 30 seconds to load and fire. Total time from German gun flash to American shells impacting was less than 3 minutes. German batteries required minimum 8 to 10 minutes to limber guns and displace. This meant German batteries caught firing missions had no possibility of escaping. American counter-battery fire. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The breakout from Normandy in late July 1944 demonstrated long tom effectiveness on a strategic scale. Operation Cobra, launched July 25th, involved concentrated American armor punching through German lines south of St. Lo. Success required suppressing German artillery that could devastate American armored columns. 16 long tom battalions, totaling 192 guns, provided counter-battery support for the operation. Their mission was to silence German artillery before it could engage American tanks. The 7th Field Artillery Battalion, veterans of Tunisia and Sicily, positioned their 12 long tom guns near Carentan, 21,000 yards from the German front lines. Their assigned sector covered German artillery positions, supporting Panzer Lehr Division and the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division. Major Stevens, now commanding the battalion, prepared his fire plan with characteristic thoroughness. Intelligence officers had identified 23 German artillery positions through aerial reconnaissance and signal intercepts. Each long tom battery received specific targets with coordinates, terrain descriptions, and priority ratings. At 0700 hours on July 25th, the counter-battery bombardment began. All 16 long tom battalions opened fire simultaneously in a carefully coordinated program. The 7th Field Artillery Battalion alone fired 380 rounds in the first hour, engaging all 23 assigned targets. The effect on German forces was catastrophic. Oberstleutnant Hans Dietrich, who had survived Tunisia, now commanded artillery for Panzer Lehr Division. His unit history, written in a prisoner of war camp, describes that morning, "The American artillery bombardment exceeded anything we had experienced on the Eastern Front. Shells of large caliber, larger than our own 15 cm guns could fire, arrived without warning. The bombardment lasted 3 hours. My regiment lost 8 guns destroyed and 14 damaged. More critically, we lost 42 trained artillerymen killed and 73 wounded. When the American armor broke through later that day, we could provide only minimal fire support. Our surviving guns had expended most of their ammunition in the initial defensive fires and could not be resupplied under American artillery interdiction." The destruction of German artillery at the operational level proved as significant as tactical victories. Panzer Lehr Division began Operation Cobra with 48 artillery pieces. By July 27th, the division had 18 functional guns. The 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division lost 32 of 40 artillery pieces in the first 2 days. This artillery attrition directly enabled American armored exploitation. German commanders could not mass forces for counterattacks because American long tom batteries would immediately engage any concentration. They could not establish defensive positions because American long-range fire could reach any location within the battle area. General Fritz Bayerlein, commanding Panzer Lehr Division, surrendered to American forces on July 29th. His interrogation report preserved at the National Archives includes remarkable testimony. "Your long-range artillery made coordinated defense impossible. We could not concentrate our forces without drawing devastating fire from guns we could not locate or engage. Our own artillery, when it attempted to fire, was immediately subjected to accurate counter-battery fire from distances our guns could not reach. The result was progressive disintegration of defensive cohesion. We did not lose because your tanks were better, though they were numerous. We lost because your artillery dominated the battlefield completely. The pursuit across France in August and September 1944 showcased Long Tom mobility. While German propaganda emphasized panzer divisions and mechanized warfare, German artillery remained predominantly horse-drawn throughout the war. The 15 cm Schwer Feldhaubitze 18 required 8 horses for towing and took 2 to 3 hours to limber, move, and emplace. The Long Tom, towed by a Mack NO 6x6 truck or an M5 high-speed tractor, could displace in 30 minutes and travel at highway speeds. The operational tempo this mobility enabled revolutionized artillery employment. Long Tom batteries could fire a mission, displace, move 20 to 30 miles, and be ready to fire again before German forces could react. The 36th Field Artillery Battalion demonstrated this capability during the pursuit to the German border. Between August 15th and September 10th, the battalion moved 17 times, an average of once every 1.5 days. They fired over 4,000 rounds during this period, providing continuous fire support despite constant movement. German artillery attempting to provide covering fire for retreating forces found themselves unable to keep pace. Horse-drawn batteries required days to move distances American motorized artillery covered in hours. The result was a steady attrition of German guns, abandoned during retreats or destroyed by American counter-battery fire when they attempted to occupy firing positions. Hauptmann Weber's battery experienced this grim reality during the retreat from Normandy. His diary entry for August 20th conveys desperate frustration. We received orders to displace at 0300 hours. It took until 0600 hours to limber our 4 remaining guns and begin movement. The horses are exhausted. We have lost 1/3 to American fighter bombers and lack fodder for the survivors. By 0900 hours, we had moved only 8 kilometers when American fighter bombers caught us on the road. We lost 2 guns and 16 horses. The remaining 2 guns we abandoned, lacking horses to move them further. My battery no longer exists as an effective unit. The advance to the German frontier in September 1944 brought Long Tom guns into position to engage targets inside Germany. The psychological impact on German forces was profound. Soldiers who had believed the war would be fought on foreign soil now faced American artillery fire landing on German territory. The Long Tom's extreme range allowed American batteries to fire from positions in France and Belgium into German border towns and military installations. The assault on the Siegfried Line, beginning in September 1944, tested Long Tom capabilities against prepared fortifications. The West Wall, as Germans called it, consisted of over 18,000 concrete bunkers, pillboxes, and fortified positions stretching 390 miles from the Netherlands to Switzerland. German defensive doctrine assumed these fortifications would channel American attacks into killing zones covered by German artillery positioned behind the West Wall. The Long Tom disrupted this doctrine fundamentally. American batteries could reach German artillery positions behind the Siegfried Line, engaging them from forward positions in Belgium and France. German guns firing in support of West Wall defences immediately drew American counterbattery fire. The result was German artillery forced to position so far behind their own fortifications that they could not effectively support the defenders. The 38th Field Artillery Battalion supported the 1st Infantry Division's assault on the Siegfried Line near Aachen in October 1944. Lieutenant Colonel James Davidson, commanding the battalion, developed innovative tactics for suppressing German artillery. His batteries used harassing fire, random shells fired at irregular intervals, to force German artillerymen to remain in shelters rather than manning their guns. When German guns did fire, immediate counter-battery missions engaged them. The combination proved devastatingly effective. Major Stevens, now executive officer of the 7th Field Artillery Battalion, documented these tactics in a report. We maintain 1 Long Tom battery in continuous operation, firing harassing missions throughout the day and night. German artillery activity in our sector decreased by 75% compared to sectors where long-term support was not available. German prisoners report that their artillery crews spend most of their time in bunkers, being afraid to man their guns because of our fire. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 presented long-term batteries with their greatest challenge. Germany's final offensive in the West achieved complete surprise, with over 200,000 troops and 1,000 tanks attacking thinly held American positions in the Ardennes. German artillery, planning for the offensive, assumed that foggy weather would ground American observation aircraft, preventing the aerial observation that made American counter-battery fire so effective. German planners correctly assessed that American aircraft could not operate in bad weather. They failed to understand that American artillery did not require good weather to dominate the battlefield. The German offensive opened with a massive artillery preparation at 0530 hours on December 16th. German batteries, concentrated to support the attack, fired from static positions they had occupied for weeks. American long-term batteries, positioned 15 to 20 miles behind American lines, were beyond German artillery range and immune to the preparatory bombardment. As soon as German guns opened fire, American sound-ranging and flash-spotting units identified their positions. Within minutes, long-term batteries received fire missions. The 92nd Field Artillery Battalion, positioned near Spa, Belgium, received coordinates for 12 German artillery positions by 0545 hours, just 15 minutes after the German bombardment began. All 4 batteries, 16 long-term guns total, opened fire immediately. They fired for effect without ranging shots, confident in their fire direction center calculations and the accuracy of their weapons. 256 rounds landed on German positions in the first 5 minutes of counter-battery fire. Oberst Heinrich Schulz commanded German Artillery Regiment 1096, supporting the 6th SS Panzer Army. His regiment had 42 guns positioned in carefully prepared positions south of Monschau. In his post-war interrogation, Schulz described the morning of December 16th. "We opened fire precisely on schedule. Our fire plan had been rehearsed for weeks. Every gun knew its targets and firing data. We expected to fire for 30 minutes, then displace before American counter-battery fire could locate us. We did not anticipate American fire arriving before we completed our first mission. By 0550 hours, less than 20 minutes after we opened fire, American shells of very large caliber were landing throughout our position. The fire was accurate and devastating. Within 10 minutes, we had lost 8 guns destroyed and 6 damaged. The remaining guns attempted to displace, but American fire followed us. By 0630 hours, my regiment had lost half its guns and was combat ineffective." The pattern repeated across the entire offensive front. German artillery, concentrated for the attack, became targets for American long-term batteries that could engage from beyond German artillery range. The 7th Field Artillery Battalion alone fired 1,800 rounds on December 16th, engaging 28 German artillery positions. Post-battle analysis showed 21 of those positions were destroyed, or abandoned. The German offensive stalled within a week, broken primarily by American artillery. The long-term batteries proved decisive. German forces could not concentrate for attacks without being subjected to devastating long-range fire. They could not establish defensive positions because American artillery could reach any location within the battle area. Most critically, German artillery could not effectively support ground operations because American counter-battery fire destroyed German guns faster than Germany could replace them. General Major Otto Riemer, commanding the Führer Escort Brigade during the Battle of the Bulge, was captured in January 1945. His intelligence interrogation includes telling assessment, "American artillery superiority defeated us before your infantry or tanks engaged us. Your long-range guns, firing from positions we could not reach, systematically destroyed our artillery. Without artillery support, we could not break through your defensive positions. Without artillery support, We could not defend against your counterattacks. The offensive was doomed from the beginning because we could not match your artillery capabilities. The crossing of the Rhine in March 1945 demonstrated long-term effectiveness in supporting offensive operations. Operation Plunder, the British-American assault across the Rhine at Wesel on March 23 to 24, was preceded by the largest artillery preparation of the Western War. 12 long-term battalions, 144 guns, participated in the preparation. Their primary mission: destroy German artillery before it could engage the crossing forces. The target was the German 84th Infantry Division's artillery, positioned along the east bank of the Rhine. Intelligence had identified 38 German artillery positions through aerial reconnaissance and signal intercepts. Long-term batteries received firing data for all positions. At 1700 hours on, March 23, the counter-battery bombardment began. The 12 long-term battalions fired continuously for 4 hours, expending over 6,000 rounds. The effect was annihilating. Technical Sergeant Raymond Jones, Section Chief with Battery A, 272nd Field Artillery Battalion, described the mission. We had aerial photographs showing every German gun position. We engaged them systematically, moving from north to south. Each battery fired 6 rounds at each assigned target, then moved to the next target. By midnight, we had engaged all our assigned positions. The river crossing met minimal artillery opposition because we had destroyed most German guns before the assault even began. German survivors confirmed American artillery's decisive impact. Oberst Hans Müller commanded the artillery regiment of the 84th Infantry Division. His regiment began the battle with 32 guns. After 4 hours of American counter-battery fire, 18 guns were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The remaining guns had expanded most of their ammunition and could not be resupplied under continued American fire. Müller's after-action report, captured when his command post was overrun, states simply, "American long-range artillery made organized defense impossible. We could not fire without drawing immediate, overwhelming counter-battery fire. We could not displace because American fire covered all movement routes. We simply died in place." The final campaigns in Germany during April and May 1945 saw long-term guns operating at peak effectiveness. German artillery, decimated by 3 years of attrition, could not contest American artillery superiority. Long-term batteries ranged freely across Germany, engaging any target that appeared. The psychological impact on German forces was total. Soldiers who had experienced Russian artillery on the Eastern Front consistently reported that American long-range artillery was more terrifying because it struck from distances that made retaliation impossible. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, whose diary chronicles much of the German artillery experience, was captured near the Ruhr Pocket in April 1945. His final diary entry, written in a prisoner of war camp, provides profound reflection. "We were told we had the best artillery in the world. We believed our training, our tactics, and our equipment were superior to any enemy. The Americans taught us otherwise. Their long-term guns could reach us from distances we thought impossible for mobile field artillery. Our finest guns, crewed by experienced veterans, meant nothing when the enemy could strike from beyond our range. This, more than any other factor, defeated us. We were fighting with weapons designed for the previous war against an enemy who had created weapons for the future. The outcome was inevitable from the moment American long-term batteries appeared on the battlefield. The industrial capacity that produced long-term guns and ammunition in such quantities represented another dimension of American superiority. Watertown Arsenal, Baldwin Locomotive Works, and subcontractors produced 955 M1 155mm guns during the war. Monthly production peaked at 64 guns in March 1944. This represented industrial efficiency that Germany, struggling with Allied bombing and resource shortages, could never match. Ammunition production reached staggering levels. American factories produced over 5,155mm gun rounds during World War II. This included standard high-explosive shells, armor-piercing rounds, and specialized ammunition for specific missions. Quality control maintained strict tolerances. Each shell was individually inspected and test-fired before acceptance. This industrial discipline ensured that American artillery officers could rely on consistent, accurate ammunition performance. German ammunition production, by contrast, suffered chronic problems. Shortages of quality steel forced use of substitute materials that reduced shell consistency. Allied bombing destroyed production facilities and disrupted supply chains. By 1944, German artillery batteries often operated with ammunition shortages so severe that fire missions required ammunition expenditure approval from division or corps headquarters. American batteries faced no such restrictions. Forward observers could call for fire freely, knowing ammunition supply was effectively unlimited. The logistical system supporting long-tom operations showcased American organizational capabilities. Each long-tom battalion required daily delivery of 50 to 100 rounds, 4 to 9 tons of shells, 2,000 gallons of fuel for prime movers, maintenance parts and supplies, and rations and supplies for over 300 personnel. The U.S. Army's logistics system delivered these requirements with remarkable consistency. Trucks of the Red Ball, express and later supply convoys moved thousands of tons of ammunition forward daily. Long-tom batteries rarely experienced ammunition shortages, even during intensive operations like the Battle of the Bulge, when general supply shortages affected other units. German logistics, dependent on horse-drawn transport and increasingly disrupted railways, could not maintain adequate forward supplies. German artillery batteries frequently reported ammunition shortages that limited their operations. This disparity in logistics multiplied the tactical advantages American artillery already possessed through superior range and firepower. The training system that produced American long-tom crews represented another significant advantage. American artillery training emphasized standardized procedures that allowed consistent performance regardless of individual skill variations. Fire direction center personnel trained for months on graphical firing table use, meteorological data integration, and coordinate system operations. Gun crews drilled endlessly on loading, firing, and displacement procedures. Forward observers received specialized training with infantry units, learning to integrate artillery support with ground operations. German artillery training, while emphasizing technical excellence, depended more heavily on individual officer skill and experience. Fire direction calculations required mathematical proficiency that varied widely between officers. This meant German battery effectiveness depended on the quality of its officers, while American battery effectiveness depended on systematic procedures that produced consistent results with average personnel. The technological innovations incorporated in long-tom operations provided additional advantages. American forward observers used SCR 610 and SCR 619 FM radios that provided clear, static-free communication, even in difficult terrain and weather. German artillery still relied primarily on AM radios, plagued by interference and limited range. American fire direction centers employed mechanical calculators and specialized slide rules that accelerated firing solution computation. German fire direction relied on manual calculations using logarithm tables, a slower process more susceptible to errors. Most significantly, American artillery integrated aerial observation with systematic efficiency. The L-4 Grasshopper liaison aircraft, operating from improvised forward airstrips, provided observation capability that German ground-based observation could not match. These small, slow aircraft could orbit over German positions, immune to German fighters by 1944, identifying targets and adjusting fire with remarkable precision. German attempts to counter this aerial observation through anti-aircraft fire proved largely ineffective. The Grasshoppers flew too low and slow for effective anti-aircraft engagement, and even when driven away, they simply returned once anti-aircraft fire ceased. The impact of long-tom artillery on German tactical doctrine was profound and permanent. By late 1944, German defensive instructions emphasized dispersion and mobility over the static defensive positions that had characterized German doctrine since World War I. German artillery instructions specifically warned against occupying positions within American long-tom range, approximately 25,000 yards, of the front lines. This forced German guns so far behind their own infantry that coordinated fire support became difficult. German training materials captured during the war reveal the extent to which American long-range artillery dominated German thinking. A December 1944 training bulletin from 7th Army Headquarters states, "Enemy long-range artillery, particularly the 15.5 cm Canone, outranges all our mobile field pieces. This weapon can engage our positions from distances our guns cannot reach. Batteries must maintain strict camouflage discipline, minimize radio transmissions, and displace frequently to avoid counter-battery fire. Concentration of artillery for major fire missions is no longer possible in sectors where enemy long-range artillery operates." This represented complete reversal of German artillery doctrine developed over 70 years of military tradition. The massed artillery fire that had been the foundation of German offensive and defensive operations became impossible to execute. German guns, forced to operate in small, dispersed groups, could not generate the firepower concentration necessary for effective support of ground operations. The long-tom's psychological impact matched its physical effects. German artillerymen understood that manning their guns while American long-tom batteries were active meant probable death or wounding. Forward observers reported that German batteries often fired abbreviated missions, just a few rounds before displacing, rather than the sustained fire missions that tactical situations required. This fear-driven behavior reduced German artillery effectiveness even when the guns remained operational. Post-war interviews with German artillery veterans consistently emphasized the terror inspired by American long-range artillery. Former Hauptmann Ernst Bauer, who commanded a battery of 15 cm Feldhaubitze 18 guns in Normandy and the Ardennes, described his experience in a 1962 interview. "We dreaded American counter-battery fire above all else. When we fired a mission, we knew American shells would arrive within minutes. The fear was terrible. You could not see the American guns. You could not hear them firing. You simply knew that having fired your mission, American shells were already on their way." Many of my men developed psychological problems. They would refuse to fire missions or would fire hastily and inaccurately to minimize exposure time. The Americans had created a system where using our guns meant probable death. The long-tom's contribution to Allied victory extended beyond tactical engagements. At the operational level, long-tom batteries' ability to suppress German artillery enabled American mobile warfare. Armored divisions could exploit breakthroughs without fear of German artillery halting their advances. Infantry divisions could assault fortified positions, knowing that German artillery supporting those positions had been neutralized. The long-tom provided American commanders with freedom of action that German commanders could not match. The final accounting of long-tom effectiveness comes from German military analysis conducted after the war. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey interviewed numerous German generals and staff officers regarding factors that contributed to German defeat. Artillery superiority appeared consistently in these interviews. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German General Staff, provided perhaps the most succinct assessment. American artillery achieved what we believed impossible. Their long-range guns could engage our positions from distances that made retaliation impossible. This fundamentally changed battlefield geometry. We could not mass forces without drawing devastating fire. We could not establish defensive positions within their range. We simply absorbed losses until our units ceased to exist. In the final analysis, American artillery superiority, more than air power or armored forces, made our defeat inevitable. The M1 155mm gun remained in American service long after World War II ended, serving in Korea, Vietnam, and finally being retired in the 1980s. Its longevity testified to the soundness of its design and its effectiveness as an artillery weapon. Modern self-propelled artillery systems descended from concepts proven by the Long Tom: extended range, precision fire control, and counter-battery superiority. Military historians analyzing American success in World War II consistently identify artillery as perhaps the single most decisive American advantage. While tanks and aircraft receive more popular attention, it was artillery that broke German attacks, supported American advances, and inflicted the majority of casualties in ground combat. The Long Tom represented the apex of this artillery dominance, a weapon that fundamentally altered battlefield mathematics and made German artillery doctrine obsolete. For Hauptmann Friedrich Weber and thousands of German artillery officers like him, the encounter with American Long Tom artillery was not merely military defeat, but intellectual transformation. They had entered the war believing German artillery traditions and equipment were superior to any enemy. They ended the war understanding that American industrial capacity and systematic organization had produced weapons and tactics that German craftsmanship and tactical skill could not counter. The Long Tom's 8,000-yard range advantage was not simply a numerical superiority. It represented the gap between 19th-century military traditions and 20th-century industrial warfare, a gap that ultimately proved unbridgeable. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.